Hi everyone. This story is not about kings or armies, but about a life older than cities and deeper than the memory of stones. About a time when the earth was the roof and walls, and fire was a beating heart in the darkness of night. A time when days are measured by the rays of the sun, and worries are summed up in one question. How do we live until tomorrow? Imagine yourself waking up where the cold stone meets the scent of ancient smoke in a cave hidden between the hills, far from the hustle and bustle of any time you know. No clock wakes you up, but rather the change of light on the cave walls and the sound of drops of water regularly touching the ground. You open your eyes to a darkness that is not complete, but rather mixed with a faint glow coming from the heart of the fire, that which was not left to die down throughout the night. The embers glow quietly, sending threads of creeping heat towards your extremities, and the cave was breathing slowly. The air was cold, but saturated with the scent of damp wood that burned slowly, mixed with the flavor of ancient ash. Behind you, you hear the breathing of the sleepers, and even rhythm, as if the whole group were one heart, close by. The soft sound of a drop of water descending from the ceiling of the cave to fall into a hole. Small, made by the days, moving cautiously so as not to wake the person next to you. Your bed is nothing more than carefully tanned hides, smooth in places and rough in others. Beneath it, the rocky floor retains its nightly coolness. You reach out toward the fire, turning a small piece of wood. Small sparks scatter, rising and then disappearing into the air in front of you on the wall. The shadows of your hands dance with the action and the heat of the embers. You contemplate for a moment how the lines move on the rock. Then you take a deep breath of the slow morning air. This is the sound of life here, the breath of drops of water and fire glowing far away. At the entrance of the cave, a thin line of light appears, like a silver thread, cutting through the darkness. The birds have begun to sing from afar, their voices reaching you as if they are a reminder that the day is coming. You know it is time to move, but without hurry. Here, the morning does not begin with a sharp chime, but sneaks in like a visitor who knows his way around. You reach out toward a small bag woven from plant fibers. In it, you search for a piece of dried meat, the remains of yesterday. The taste is salty and harsh, but it instills in you a sense of continuity. You know that maintaining your strength is crucial. Today, as every day is a challenge between you and nature, and as you watch the embers, you think about your first task this morning. Keeping the fire alive, because the heart of the group depends on it. Fire is not just warmth, it is the group's memory and the reason for its continuity. Every glowing ember carries within it hours of staying up late and guarding, and any negligence might make the night more cruel. You approach it, carefully pick up a small piece of charcoal and tuck it between two fresh logs you brought yesterday. You choose the firewood with an expert eye, not the green twigs that smother the flames with smoke, nor the dry, brittle wood that burns quickly and then goes out, but the kind that has a medium hardness, releases a steady heat and leaves long embers. From the corner of the cave, you hear the sound of faint footsteps. It is the woman who has known the secrets of fire since she was a child. She carries in her hand a small bundle of thin pine branches from which a sharp, resinous scent emanates. She smiles at you, gives you a short nod, then sits next to you. She begins to arrange the branches in a small pyramid shape, tucking in pieces of the dry bark that has fallen from the dead trees. She takes a sharpened piece of stone and hits it against another. A small spark flies and falls on the bark, igniting a wisp of smoke first. Then the fire begins to slowly blossom like an orange flower in the gray morning. You watch it as it blows air with its mouth, short, measured puffs until the fire catches its breath and becomes independent. You sit for a moment in silence, listening to the sound of the wood crackling and the smell of the smoke mingling with the scent of pine. This smell, will remain clinging to the cave walls until the next rainy season. In another corner, some men begin sharpening their stone tools in preparation for leaving. Little children toss and turn in their sleeping places, curling up deeper into the warm skins as if trying to steal a few more minutes before day calls. Don't you get up and put a few bigger pieces of wood on the flame? Then she turns to you and says in a low voice, "Fire only betrays those who neglect it." Her words carry more than advice. It is an unwritten law known to everyone who has lived here. You realize that fire is not just a tool, but a link between you and those who came before you and those who will come after you. It is something like the heart. If it stops, the whole body dies. When you raise your head from the fire and look around the cave, you discover that every corner has a non-random arrangement. The place itself had been organized according to an ancient rhythm. In the far right, near the inner wall, small families sleep there. Mattresses are made up of layers of animal skins placed over a layer of dry grass that prevents moisture from reaching the bodies. Over the skins are light linings of soft fur carefully collected from winter hunting animals. In the middle is an open area closer to a passageway that allows movement between the fire and the cave entrance. It is also a meeting place when the group gathers at night around the flames. This space is free of any obstacles. Even children know not to put anything here because movement should be smooth in case you need to get out quickly. To the left, near the entrance to the cave, the men who take turns on guard at night sleep. Their bedding is thinner, as they are accustomed to the cold, but they have a direct view outwards, so they can notice any movement in the dark or hear unfamiliar sounds. You notice that each person keeps his few belongings close to him. A stone tool, a small knife, a bag of plant fiber containing dried food or personal items. There is no property in the sense known in later times, but there is respect for the location of everything and an awareness that losing a tool might mean losing a chance to survive. The children, despite their small size, know their places precisely. When night falls, no one needs to tell them where to sleep, as the earth itself memorizes the lines of the bodies and returns them to it each evening. There are also designated places for storage. Small cavities in the wall filled with bundles of dried herbs and bags of bark containing grains or dried fruits. Everything here has a purpose, and every space is used to its fullest when you walk. Towards the entrance, a cool draft of air carries the scent of the humid forest. From here, you see the daylight beginning to expand and the sounds outside becoming clearer. Birds pecking at tree bark and the rustle of leaves moving in the wind. You realize that these moments of silence before leaving the cave are part of an unspoken routine, as each person prepares in their own way to face a new day in a world that doesn't offer much. As the light expands at the entrance to the cave, the morning rhythm begins to accelerate, but not hastily, but with quiet steadiness. Some women head towards the embers, placing flat stones heated throughout the night on them. On these stones are placed thin slices of dried meat to regain some of their softness, or small pieces of preserved roots to be heated. Food at this time is not a feast, but fuel for the body. A piece of salty meat, a handful of dried berries, and perhaps a warm drink of herbs soaked in rainwater. Its scent is somewhat sharp and herbal, but it warms the throat and chest. The young sit in a small circle, sharing what they are given, while the older ones eat quickly. And quiet, preparing to leave, the sounds of chewing mixed with the clicking of stone tools, as someone mends a spearhead or resharpens a knife. You eat your food, thinking about how far you might walk today and the possibilities of what you will or will not find in this world. Each meal might be the last you have for many hours, perhaps even for an entire day, so no girl is wasted. When you finish, you wash your hands in a small stone basin filled with cold water brought from the nearby stream. The water restores your skin's alertness and reminds you of the coolness of the river you might cross later today. A meal is not just food. It is also a moment to plan. By the fire, hunters and gatherers exchange short words, setting the course, mentioning locations where animal tracks have been spotted or places where rare plants have appeared. Here, survival is not a decision or a heroic act, but a daily reality. You know which plant heals and which makes sick. Any mark on the ground means prey, and any scent in the air warns you of a nearby predator. Before the group moves outside, you turn toward the fire again. You see the embers still burning, Isla watches them with her eye, keeping life in the heart of the cave vibrant until everyone returns with sunset. The air outside is cooler, but it is saturated with the scent of life. The scent of wet moss from dewdrops, soft soil underfoot, and a breeze carrying the flavor of wet pine leaves. You stand at the entrance for a moment, letting your eyes adjust to the light after half a day spent in the familiar darkness of the cave. The group moves slowly but with measured steps. The hunters carry their spears and tools, and the gatherers place baskets, woven on their backs, lined with soft grasses so as not to damage the plants they will gather. Everyone knows their role, and no one leaves their post empty. Before you descend to the plain, the leader raises his hand as a signal to stop. He looks around, experiencing the silence of the morning. The silence in this world is not emptiness, but a delicate fabric of sounds. The buzzing of a distant insect, the whistle of a bird that suddenly changes its tune, or the rustling of leaves unmoved by the wind. All these signs are read as one reads words on a page. Together, you descend onto the dirt path that leads to the ancient forest. The ground here is still damp from yesterday's rain, and a layer of lingering mud clings to the bottom of your feet. The sounds of feet on mud are like slow beats that repeat with a steady rhythm, as if part of an ancient ritual. The dangers outside are not always obvious. Sometimes they come in the form of a predator that silently tires you out, sometimes in a poisonous plant with attractive leaves. There is also the danger of getting lost, for the forest is capable of swallowing anyone who strays from the path without leaving a trace. As a result, everyone stays close, following the steps of the leader or one of the experienced gatherers who knows the locations of water and suitable plants. Communication between them is few words but rich in signs. A slight gesture, a movement of the hand, or even a sudden stop means that something deserves attention. Every step outwards is a reminder that the cave, with all its darkness and cold, is not a prison, but a fortress. You enter under a canopy of dense branches, where the light gradually fades until it turns a dark green. The sun's rays filter in the form of fine threads that dance with the movement of the leaves, as if the forest itself is weaving changing patterns on the soft floor, covered with a layer of decaying leaves that release a deep scent, a mixture of old wood and moisture. With every step, you hear a light rustle and sometimes the crack of a small twig breaking underfoot. This sound in the world of hunting can announce your presence to those you do not want to see. So you move cautiously, easing the pressure on the ground and choosing your footholds carefully. From time to time, a specter of movement passes before you. A quick squirrel jumps from one trunk to another, or a bird suddenly flaps its wings to get away from you. And up high, among the branches of the tall trees, you hear the sounds of birds. You never see them, but you know them by the tones of their voices. The leader raises his hand, and everyone stops. He kneels a little, touches the ground, and then points to a faint print in the mud, the imprint of an old hoof, perhaps of a deer that passed hours ago. The path does not change for it, for today is not a hunting day, but the information is recorded in the memory. In the old forest, everything seems still from afar, but it is full of subtle movement. Water drops slowly descend from large leaves. An ant carries a leaf 10 times larger than its body. A spider's thread gleams in the sun's rays before disappearing into the shade. The heat here moderate, but the humidity clings to the skin and makes the air feel heavier than it is at the cave entrance. Sometimes your nose catches a sudden floral scent, then it quickly disappears. It's as if the forest is giving you fleeting glimpses of its secrets. You are now deeper inside, where daylight reaches only fragments, and where the distance between you and the cave is no longer measured in steps, but in the growing feeling that you are a guest in a land that does not belong to you. The group stops in a small clearing where light penetrates the forest ceiling and gives the patch of ground a temporary warmth. Here, trained eyes begin their careful scanning. Not everything that grows is edible, and not everything edible is always safe. Yara, the oldest of the gatherers, bends toward a low plant with long, thin leaves. She gently touches the tip of the leaf, then brings it to her nose. After a moment, she shakes her head and moves on to another plant. She has a small knife with a wide edge, which she uses to gently cut the stems so as not to damage the roots. She learns from her that knowing plants is not just memorizing shapes, but knowing their scent. Its texture and even the taste of a small leaf chewed on the tongue point you to a light green herb. She says its leaves treat burns and its roots are boiled to make a drink that relieves stomach pain. One of the boys finds a plant with purple petals and runs towards it, delighted, but Lyra stops him before he touches it. In a calm but firm voice, she explains that this plant, despite its beauty, is prepared in a special way. That knowledge, which may have come from previous generations, is what prevents a simple mistake from becoming a diamond. She places the selected plants in baskets lined with broad leaves to protect them from wilting. Each time the basket is filled a little, she arranges its contents carefully so as not to break the stems or wilt the leaves. While working, her eyes remain alert and her ears listen for any change in the surrounding sounds. Even in moments of preoccupation, no one forgets that the forest may hide among its shadows what is not easily seen. When the first baskets are full, the team gathers in a short circle, inspecting what they have collected and exchanging a few words about other sites that may contain rare plants. This is not just a collection trip, but a living lesson in survival, its lines written in memory, not on paper. The path towards the wild beehive begins through a narrow path surrounded by dense bushes. The air here is heavier with the scent of wild flowers, as if you are approaching the heart of the forest, pulsating with nectar. The leader signals to everyone to be quiet, as bees do not like disturbance. Taryn, the most experienced in this matter, walks in front, holding a long branch in his hand ending in a piece of dry grass, which he will light later to release smoke that calms the bees. His steps are slow, but he knows exactly where to put his feet, avoiding branches that might make noise or hinder progress. After a short distance, the hive spots a cavity in the trunk of an old tree, the color of its entrance dark from the effect of wings that have passed over it hundreds of times. From inside, the bees emerge and enter in a continuous line, as if it were a small path of flying gold. Before approaching, Taryn lights the tip of the grass, and a cloud of white smoke with a woody scent rises. He stands at a calculated distance and directs the smoke towards the entrance of the hive. The bees, which were moving quickly, begin to slowing down. His voices become less sharp with a flat stone tool. He reaches inside carefully and pulls out a wax disc filled with honey that slowly drips onto his fingers. The color is a deep gold and the smell is so sweet it almost overpowers all other forest scents. He transfers the disc to a basket lined with large leaves so that nothing is lost. The process is repeated only a few times. The group knows that taking too much can harm the bees, and they need the hive to stay strong for the coming years. After finishing, the team slowly withdraws, letting the bees go back to their work, as if nothing had happened, just a fleeting visit from strangers who know the value of friendship with nature. You walk away. Your hands still carrying the scent of smoke and honey are a mixture that perfectly reflects the meaning of staying here. A compromise between need and caution. As you continue walking after the rest stop, Denny walks beside you. He is a middle-aged man with broad shoulders and hands bearing the scars of many years of work, but his eyes shine with a wisdom deeper than his muscles. He is known among the group for his ability to treat wounds and diseases and for knowing the forest as he knows the lines of his palm. He leans toward a small plant with leaves opposite each other on the stem. He plucks a leaf and folds it between his fingers until a strong scent comes out of it. He explains that this leaf is crushed and placed on wounds to prevent them from rotting, and that it is also boiled to treat fevers. He shows you how to test the plant, smell, touch, and sometimes taste carefully. Along the way, he stops at other plants, some you know before and some you have only seen now. A herb with delicate yellow flowers, he says, is used to calm the stomach, and another with broad leaves is used as a natural poultice. Each time, he tells you how he learned to use it from a generation before him and from long observations over successive seasons. You notice that my religion doesn't collect much of each kind, just enough for what's needed. He repeats more than once that nature doesn't plunder, but rather treats him like a generous neighbor, taking from him what it needs and leaving him with what he needs to continue his life. While explaining, he picks up a small piece of dry bark from his pocket, breaks it between his fingers, and releases a deep scent. He says, "This is burned for chests on summer nights." He smiles as he places it in your hand, as if giving you a small key to the secrets of the place. With every step, you realize that the knowledge he carries is not just a trick for survival, but a complex web of relationships between humans, plants, and animals, woven over generations and inseparable from the life of the group itself. As you walk down a narrow path lined with oak trees, the leader stops suddenly, raises his hand, and points ahead. There, a few dozen steps away, stands a huge man, his forked antlers shining in the rays of the sun filtering through the leaves. No one moves. The deer is also watching you. His ears move right and left, weighing between curiosity and caution. His breath is rising in the humid forest air, like small clouds slowly fading in the group, has a special place for the deer. Not just prey, but a symbol of strength and the ability to withstand the harsh winter. Its antlers, which renew themselves every year, leave a sign of renewal and life after loss. The leader signals to the hunters to lower their spears. Today is not the day to hunt, and the group is already laden with enough resources. In the shared silence, there is a kind of respect, as if the encounter itself is a gift from the forest. You remember the stories told around the fire in the cave about a hunter who followed a deer for many days until he almost died. But the deer led him in the end to a stream he did not know. The hunter was saved and returned to his group. Such stories make the animal more than just flesh and bone, but a partner in life. Moments later, the deer takes a slow step, then another, before disappearing among the trees in a silence unbecoming of its size, as if the forest had swallowed it, leaving behind a brief echo in the memory. The group moves again, but you sense that everyone has kept something of that encounter in their heart, something immeasurable. Weight and not stored in a basket. As the sun approaches the edge of the forest, the light becomes warmer and more golden shadows stretch across the ground, and the sounds of birds change, as if announcing the near end of the day. Steps are slower now, not only from fatigue but also because the basket on the back is heavier than it was in the morning. The basket contains a mixture of everything you have gathered: fresh leaves with a sharp scent, thick roots covered with a layer of mud, bundles of partially dried herbs, and pieces of honeycomb protected by broad leaves. Each element tells a part of the day's journey. Dini walks in the middle, reviewing with his eyes the contents of the baskets and making sure that the most fragile, well-protected. Yara carries her basket as if cradling a child, careful not to pile the plants on top of each other. The hunters walk lightly, their hands free in anticipation of any surprise on the way. The path to the cave seems shorter than it did in the morning, perhaps because the thought of reaching the warmth of the fire and the smell of smoke makes the steps faster. At the first glimpse of the cave entrance, a familiar sense of security overwhelms the group. The massive stones surrounding the entrance are open arms waiting for them. The children who remained in the cave run to meet them, their curiosity driving them to reach out towards the baskets to examine what has been brought. Some smile at the sight of the honey, others lift a plant between their fingers, wondering its name. Inside the cave, the sorting process begins immediately. Medicinal herbs are placed in a shaded, dry place. Edible plants are prepared for cooking or drying. Honey is stored in small stone vessels. Outside the cave, the sun continues to set slowly, but inside, the firelight begins to grow stronger, heralding the beginning of another chapter of the group's day. With the arrival of evening, the atmosphere in the cave changes. Outside, a cool breeze creeps in, but inside, it mingles with the heat of the fire and the smell of cooking. Near the entrance, you hear the footsteps of the returning hunters, preceded by their long shadows, their light dancing off the stone walls. They carry with them what they have hunted. Meat divided over their shoulders, feathers hanging from their leather belts, and their tools, which still bear the traces of earth and blood, and which they have already begun to clean. No one raises their voices to speak, as there is a kind of unspoken ritual upon return, where the hunters are given a moment of silence to catch their breath after placing the spoils near the fire. The narrator, usually the eldest among them or the one who led the hunt, begins to tell the story. They sit in a semicircle, eyes, especially the children's, following every word. They explain how they followed the animal's trail through the mud, how they noticed the change in wind that revealed their scent, and how they were forced to change course. They talk about the heavy silence before the crucial moment, and about the measured swoop that leaves no room for error, but the story is not about killing as much as it is about balance. They mention how the hunt was necessary and they took only what they needed. Some stories end with the mention of the missing animal, the one that was not caught and whose escape was a blessing for the group another day. The children sit transfixed, imagining the scenes as if they were there, while the adults nod their heads, acknowledging the skill of the hunters and the experience of the leader. In the background, the fire continues to crackle, as if applauding the story in its own way. Once the story is over, the cooking stage begins, a ritual no less important than the hunt itself. In the middle of the cave, over the burning embers, long wooden skewers are placed, on which pieces of meat are fixed to be slowly grilled. The smell of fat dripping onto the embers mingles with a light smoke, filling the room with a warm fragrance that even those standing at the entrance can sense. Beside the fire is a small pit surrounded by smooth stones. This pit is used as a stone oven, where roots and tubers are placed inside large leaves and then buried under a layer of hot ash and stones protected by heat. There are no spices in the modern sense, but nature itself provides its flavors, with smoke, the natural oils of the roots, and the aroma of herbs that are sometimes placed with the food inside the leaves. The sounds of cooking are not just crackling, but also the hiss of fat on the stones and the rustle of leaves as they are lifted from the ripe roots. All these sounds form a rhythmic background for short conversations among the members of the group. As time passes, the color of the meat changes from dark red to deep brown, and the roots soften under the fingers of those who examine them. Then everyone knows that dinner is ready and that the moment to gather around the food has approached. After everyone has taken their share of dinner, work begins on what remains of the meat in this world. Nothing is wasted. Large pieces are cut into thin slices and hung on wooden rods over or next to the fire, where the smoke rises to keep them from rotting. This method, which may last for days, makes the meat good. For eating for weeks and perhaps months, the large bones are carefully broken to obtain the marrow, which is a food rich in energy and is also used in some medical ointments. The tendons are carefully pulled out, as they are a strong and durable material for making ropes or for securing arrowheads. Even the skin is not left alone, but is tanned using a mixture of ash and some plants to become flexible and is used to make clothing or coverings. The internal organs that are not consumed immediately are quickly cooked or preserved in special ways. Some are mixed with herbs to make nutritious meals for children or the sick. All of these operations are carried out with clear expertise, as each person knows what to do, as if they are performing a play that they have memorized. Even feathers and fur have their uses. Feathers are used to decorate tools or as an arrow to balance flight, and fur is additional insulation against the winter cold. Working to exploit every part of the animal is not just a matter of survival, but also respect. The animal that has lost its life becomes part of the group, warming it, feeding it, and providing it with tools to protect it, as if its soul continues to serve them even after its departure. With the completion of dinner and the arrangement of what remains of the resources begins the quietest part of the evening is the evening gathering. Everyone sits in a wide circle around the fire, spreading themselves out so that its heat reaches them evenly. The flames dance on the walls and cast moving shadows that make the cave seem larger and deeper than it is. At this time, the stories are not only entertainment, but a way to preserve knowledge and history. One of the sheiks begins to tell an old story about the journey of their ancestors, how they crossed distant mountains, overcame storms, and found this cave for the first time. His tone is slow, each word carefully chosen to be planted in the memory of the listeners. The children move closer, their eyes widening with each event, and their faces lighting up with the reflection of the fire. Some of the stories carry practical lessons, such as a way to determine the direction of the wind or recognize the tracks of an animal, but they are wrapped in a mythical framework that makes them easy to remember. Sometimes the stories are interspersed with short songs that the group repeats together. Their rhythm is simple and repetitive, in harmony with the sound of the burning embers. The rhythm makes even the little ones memorize the words after repeating them a few times. During these moments, everyone feels that they are part of something bigger. Their daily lives, the stories link the past to the present and make the group a single unit that knows its roots as it knows the methods of hunting and gathering. With the passage of time, the voice of the narrator decreases and the fire begins to die down. But the warmth of the moment remains as if the words themselves have become part of the walls. After the stories, some of the adults turn to work on their tools in a corner lit by the glow of the fire. Two men sit on the ground. In front of them are large and small stones with sharp edges. One of them begins to strike, flint against flint with precise, repeated strikes until a thin edge is formed that could become an arrowhead or a knife blade. Sparks sometimes fly, but they move their hands steadily as if they are playing a musical instrument they know well. Near them sits a woman with a collection of strings extracted from animal sinews. She moistens them with water and then begins to twist them tightly until they turn into a strong rope that can be used for hunting or for tying blankets. The movement is repetitive, its rhythm in harmony with the crackling of embers in the fire. The children approach to see up close. Some try to imitate the movements on small pieces of stone, and others pick up sticks and plant fibers to try weaving. The adults do not mind, but rather encourage them, even if they sometimes spoil the materials. Here, learning is not a classroom, but rather a lively participation in the midst of daily life. One of the boys succeeds in shaping the sharp end of a small stone, so he raises it proudly. The older man smiles and takes it from him, turning it over in his hands, then gives it back to him, saying, "Tomorrow will be better." It is a way to cultivate patience, because making a good tool takes more time than the enthusiasm of a single day. These moments are not just about producing tools, but also about establishing a culture of craftsmanship, self-reliance, and the realization that everything the group owns has passed through its hands and been made from resources it has gathered itself. In the innermost wall of the cave, far from the direct glow of fire, there is a semi-dark space that everyone knows. There, under a layer of blackness left by the smoke of decades of fire, lines and shapes appear, some clear, some barely distinguishable. These are the cave paintings, an unwritten record preserved in the rock. You approach slowly, your eyes needing a moment to get used to the dim light. First, you see a large image of a deer, its antlers extending in curved lines. The one who drew it wanted to immortalize the feeling of extension and strength. Beside it are hands imprinted with red and yellow, the fingerprints of humans from long ago. Beside you, she stands holding a small rock bowl. Inside is a mixture of clay, burnt herbs, and powdered minerals. She tells you that this mixture is what makes the pigments. The red color comes from oxides, the iron they collect from the riverbanks. The yellow one comes from special soil brought from far away, and the black one comes from finely ground coal mixed with animal fat. Do you see how a primitive brush made of plant fibers is used to apply the color to the wall? Her movements are not random. They are precise and deliberate, as if she is redrawing what her eyes saw in the forest or on the plain. Sometimes she blows the color through a small hollow tube to leave a soft trace resembling a shadow. But the paintings are not the only thing that distinguishes this corner of the cave. When you raise your head and describe, clap your hand or knock with a stone on the wall, you hear a different echo. The place is designed, or perhaps arranged, to repeat the sound in a distinctive way. The echo reverberates as if it comes from the depths of the earth, multiplying the impact of the sounds and making them deeper. The leader explains that this area is sometimes used for rituals, where they gather to tell the stories of their ancestors or to perform group songs. The sounds that resonate here carry a greater sense of presence, as if the walls themselves participate in the singing. In one of the corners, you see a large stone bowl containing small balls of dry pigment. These are moistened with water or fat when needed and kept as if they are treasures, because some of their ingredients are rare and require days of travel to collect. As you leave this corner, you realize that what you see on the walls is not just art or decoration. It is a connection between two eras. The time that drew these pictures and your time. Every line and color is a lasting message that says that they were here thinking and feeling and leaving a trace as we are doing now. As the night deepens, the cave begins to transform into a stage for events that do not happen in broad daylight. The embers in the heart of the fire shine like small eyes watching, and the flames dance slowly. It sends long shadows climbing the walls and disappearing into the hollows of the stone. In one corner, a small circle of smooth stones is erected. This time it's not for fire, but for placing specific objects. Polished bones, stones of unusual colors, and long, brightly colored feathers. These tools are not for decoration, but part of a ritual that the group has memorized for generations. The leader stands in the middle of the circle, raising his hands, and the group begins to make low sounds, not intelligible words, but rhythmic repetitions. The echo in the cave amplifies these sounds, making them deeper and more mysterious, until you feel they are coming from deep within the earth itself. The children sit next to their mothers, watching in silence. Some try to imitate the tune, others just listen. The rituals are not yet fully understood, but the atmosphere instills in them a sense of belonging to something larger than their daily lives. One of the women takes crushed herbal leaves mixed with fat from a stone bowl and draws lines from it on the faces of the participants. The smell is strong, a mixture of earth and ash, and the herbs seem to awaken the senses. The lines are not just decoration. Each pattern has a meaning. Some are related to hunting, some to protection, and some to celebrating the seasons. As the sounds continue, the rhythm begins to change. Some men strike stones together, producing a short, metallic note that is repeated with the sound of the collective breathing. This harmony creates a feeling that time has slowed down, or perhaps stopped for a moment. At the peak of the ritual, an object, perhaps a deer antler or a rare stone, is raised to the level of the fire, as if offering it to the light to be blessed before it is returned to its special place in the cave. Then, little by little, whoops of noise and a low hum remains, fading with the roar of the embers. When all is finished, the group returns to their sleeping quarters quietly, but the cave feels a little different. It is as if the walls have stored these sounds and breaths to one day return them to those who will sit here centuries after you. After the rituals have subsided and the sounds have ceased, everyone returns to the central fire, where warm scents begin to spread from the remains of dinner being reheated and roots cooked in the stone oven are extracted from under the hot ashes, revealing dark shells hide a soft, warm heart. But before anyone touches the food, the sharing process begins. It is a daily ritual as much as it is practical. The leader, with the help of two elderly women, divides the meat into portions. The children and the sick are given first, then the women who will go out to gather in the morning, and then the hunters who will leave before sunrise. The process is carried out in almost complete silence. Everyone knows that respecting the order means ensuring survival. No one complains about the size of their portion, as everyone knows that the resources are not the property of an individual but of the entire group. Some pieces are wrapped in large leaves and kept in the recesses of the cold walls to be provisions for the next day or for longer journeys. The medicinal herbs that Dini has collected are carefully sorted. Some are placed in small plant bags, and some are tied in bundles to be hung from the ceiling, where the smoke reaches them, preserving them from mold. Even the honey collected during the day is carefully divided into small stone vessels. Each family gets a share, but a portion is kept for the harsh winter nights when food is scarce and energy is needed most. The children watch the process with interest, as if they knew by heart this unwritten system that enables the group to continue despite the harshness of the environment. After everything is over, everyone begins to eat slowly, not just as someone filling his stomach, but as someone enjoying what the last day gives him in terms of a goal. Around the fire, some exchange a few words, and others are content to look at the flames, thinking about tomorrow and the road that awaits them. When the shadows begin to extend inside the cave and the daylight fades until it becomes a faint thread at the entrance, the group moves slowly towards a ritual that everyone knows at a place to sleep. No one speaks loudly. Voices here automatically turn to whispers. The cave itself asks everyone to be quiet. Ella advances toward the central fire. The red embers glow softly like small, pulsating hearts. She uses a long stick to stir the wood, sending short sparks flying before disappearing into the air. Then she begins the process of covering the embers with a layer of fine ash. This is not the end of the fire, but a means of preserving its heat at its core until morning, so that it can easily revive with the first touch of fresh wood. At the same time, others are busy preparing sleeping quarters. Skins are spread out on the rocky floor after being shaken to remove any dust or insects. Some add a layer of dry grass under the skins to insulate against the cold, and some place fur covers over them. The mothers are careful to place the children between them and the inner wall, away from the cold air that seeps in from the entrance. Hunters, by nature, choose places close to the entrance, not because they prefer the cold, but because they take turns on night watch. Their tools are spears. Stone knives and small bags containing flint stones are always placed at hand in case of an emergency in the corners designated for storage. Empty baskets are returned to their places and bundles of medicinal herbs are hung on the walls in places where a light smoke reaches them to protect them from mold. Hunting tools are wiped with pieces of cloth made of plant fibers, and it is ensured that any stone blade damaged during the day is repaired or replaced before bed. As the moment of stillness approaches, the sounds of the day begin to disappear. There is no laughter of children, no clicking of stones, no rustling of grass being cut. Only the faint sound of the fire remains, intermittent whispers, and the rustle of blankets being pulled. Everyone prepares to slowly leave wakefulness and slip into the embrace of night, which enfolds the cave between its stone wings. As the sounds of movement inside die down, two hunters remain at the entrance of the cave, sitting close to each other, each wrapped in a thick fur blanket. In front of them is a small flame separate from the central fire, sufficient to provide some light and warmth without revealing their location too much to the outside world. Outside the cave, darkness stretches thickly, but it is not silent. There are sounds that only those who know how to listen can hear. The rustling of distant leaves touched by the wind, the call of a night bird that repeats itself periodically, and the footsteps of a small animal searching for food. Sometimes they hear a branch break farther away, and one of them tilts his head to listen, then decides whether the sound is worth worrying about or whether it is merely the passing movement of a gazelle or a wild rabbit. Watching here is not just a duty, but a ritual of safety for the entire group. Without the guard, the night remains unknown, open to all possibilities. The two hunters take turns remaining vigilant, one watching the outside with a steady eye, the other letting his eyelids rest for a few moments before they take turns. In the sky, small openings appear between the clouds, revealing distant stars, some of which they know well and use to gauge the passage of time. The moon, if present, casts a dim light on the mouth of the cave, enough to make out the outlines of nearby trees. Sometimes they whisper about the events of the day, about the deer that appeared in the woods, or about the route they took to collect honey. These short conversations are not to waste time, but to dispel the weight of silence and maintain alertness of the senses. Every now and then, one of them turns inward to make sure that the flame is still alive and that the sleeping ones are safe. This balance between looking outward and being reassured inward is what makes guarding a double act. Protection from the unknown and guarding the tranquility. In the left corner of the cave, where the glow of the fire fades and only its faint reflection reaches, Lara lies down next to her little daughter. The girl is still awake, staring at the cave's ceiling as if following the shadows as they move slowly. She whispers to her mother, "Will tomorrow come like today?" Lara smiles and answers in a low voice, "No day comes like the other, but it will carry enough for us." On the opposite side, Dini exchanges conversation with one of the young men who accompanied him in gathering plants. He describes to him how to distinguish the correct medicinal herb from its poisonous counterpart and tells him about a season years ago in which a rare plant had saved the life of a sick child. The young man listens attentively as if he is memorizing every word in his memory. Close to the entrance, one of the hunters returning from watch whispers to his companion, describing to him a short scene he saw outside. A small hedgehog crossing the path between the rocks, stopping from time to time to sniff the air. Nothing in this story has a direct practical effect, but it leaves a quiet smile on the listener's face. These short conversations in the dark are like threads woven for the group's quilts. No one raises their voices, and no one tells a long story, but each word builds a small bridge between one heart and another. Even children who don't understand all the meanings feel the warmth of these bonds and fall asleep while listening to the familiar melody of voices. As the minutes pass, the words diminish until they disappear, and the cave returns to its silence. It is as if each breath has become part of a single harmony that includes everyone under one roof of stone and tambourine. While most of the group slips into a deep sleep, one man remains sitting near the central fire, his legs folded beneath him and his hands extended towards the warmth. He is not on watch, but he is accustomed to staying up a little later than the others, and he has a special dialogue with the embers. The fire is now not a high flame, a red heart, beating slowly, each ember carrying its own color, graduating from bright yellow to deep orange until it reaches the edge of black. The man watches it as if he were reading letters on a silent page. Every now and then, he extends a small wooden stick to stir the embers, and a light flame rises that quickly fades in the cold air. The smell of burning wood is still present, but with it now a calmer flavor, as if the fire was breathing in its dream. His eyes do not focus on anything in particular, but in his mind are pictures of the day, the deer of the forest, the leaves of the plants they gathered, the face of the child who laughed as he chased a small fish in the stream. These pictures move slowly, mixed with memories of older days, until time itself becomes less clear. He takes a small piece of dried meat from his bag, raises it to his mouth and tastes it slowly. The taste is salty and rich, and with the warmth of the fire, it becomes closer to the taste of safety. When he feels that the embers have settled under their cover of ash, he stretches the cover over his shoulders and takes one last look at the remaining flame for him. Fire is not just a tool for survival, but a silent companion, witnessing every moment of the group's life, its presence extending from day to day, with no interruption between them. With the approach of midnight, the cave becomes a single mass of stillness and warmth. The skins and furs form adjacent islands of comfort, each island containing bodies curled in silence, moving only with the rhythm of breathing. The sounds here are soft. A long exhalation, a short inhalation in a sudden dream, a quiet tossing of someone searching for a more comfortable position. Children are the most immersed in sleep, their arms slack, their heads resting on their mother's shoulders. One of them smiles in his sleep, perhaps because in his dream he sees the image of the table or the honeycomb he tasted in the morning. Beside them is an old man moving his lips, saying words that no one hears, as if he is whispering an old story to someone in another world. From time to time, a cool current of air passes from the entrance, touching the faces of the sleepers, and one of them moves to pull the blanket closer around his body. The faint smoke that seeps from the embers buried beneath the ashes fills the air with a constant scent, a mixture of wood, leather, and dry plants. It is a sense so familiar that it is almost part of the dream itself. And outside, the night adds its own music. The hooting of a distant owl, the rustling of leaves moving in rhythm with the wind, and the sound of an animal's footsteps crossing the rocks before disappearing into the darkness. These sounds do not disturb the sleepers, but rather intermingle with their dreams, as if the forest itself were telling them stories. Deep in this stillness, the cave seems like a beating heart. Every beat is a breath of the group, and every breath is an unspoken promise that day will come and that they will wake up together. The cave is immersed in the warmth of sleep. The forest stretches outside under a blanket of thick darkness. The moon, a pale white semicircle, creeps between scattered clouds, drawing pale patches of light on the damp earth. The leaves of the tall trees move slowly, as if breathing in rhythm with the wind. In the narrow paths taken by the animals, the small feet of Dam leave fresh prints on the soft mud. A field mouse emerges from its burrow to pass quickly among the grasses, stopping for a few seconds to sniff the air, then disappears a little further. A hedgehog circles around a tree trunk, searching for insects stuck under the bark. The night sounds here are clearer than during the day. The croaking of frogs rises from the direction of the distant swamp, mixed with the squeaking of insects that never stop playing. Sometimes this rhythm is interrupted by the sound of an owl's wings as it lands noiselessly on its prey, or a short howl in the distance, echoed by the surrounding hills. From the entrance to the cave, the guard can see the borders of the plain fading into the light mist. There, where darkness meets the fading light, larger shadows move, perhaps deer moving silently or wolves passing quickly. Nature here is neither aggressive nor friendly, but rather goes about its own business, indifferent to the humans who sleep under the stone roof. Even the rocks themselves, under the moonlight, take on a different color, cooler and closer to blue. The small cracks that the sun hides during the day appear clearly now, as if the night were revealing the secrets of the earth. If one of the sleepers came out at this moment, he might feel that time had stopped and that the world was moving more slowly, governed by an invisible rhythm known only to those who have lived long in the heart of nature. Before the first rays of the sun touch the entrance to the cave, the gray light begins to creep inside gently. Like a hesitant visitor outside, the sounds of the night slowly recede, replaced by the whisper of morning. The flutter of a bird waking up among the branches, the rustle of leaves touched by the dawn breeze, and the sound of a distant stream regaining its clarity as the wind inside quiets down. The first to wake up moves quietly so as not to wake the others. The night watchman places a small flame near the buried embers and blows on it gently. A thin smoke rises, and then the heat begins to spread again. The smell of burning wood now mixes with the cool air coming from outside, refreshing the senses. Ayla appears from her corner, covers her shoulders with her fur blanket, and sits by the fire, placing small pieces of firewood on top of the embers until the flames slowly burn. Beside her, one of the hunters drinks sips of cold water he has kept in a stone bowl all night. He washes his face and wipes the drops of water from his thick beard. The children slowly open their eyes to a light different from the fire. They raise their heads to make sure that it is indeed day. Some creep towards the fire to feel warm. Others head towards the entrance to glimpse the forest changing colors with every minute that passes outside the cave. The sky changes from gray to light blue with pink lines announcing the arrival of the sun. As you look at this scene, you realize that dawn is not just a new beginning for the day, but a repeated promise that the cycle will continue as it has continued thousands of times before. With the completion of daylight and the entry of the first rays of the sun into the heart of the cave, the group begins its day as generations before it did. The same movements, the same sounds, the same smells, but as you watch, you realize that what is happening before you is not just a mechanical repetition, but rather a continuation of a life that has extended across centuries, a life that has not been interrupted despite the changing faces and seasons. You see the hunters preparing to go out, just as they did yesterday and as they will do tomorrow. You see the universities filling their baskets with gathering tools, just as their mothers and grandmothers did. The children, despite their young age, know their roles in this fabric. They run among the adults, imitating their movements and thus planting the present in the soil of the future. You think about the time distance that separates you from them, but in reality it does not seem as far as you imagine. Yes, you live in a different world with tall cities and walls of glass and iron, but the same hunger, the same warmth, the same fear and the same desire for protection have all not changed. These people surround the fire as your family members surround materials. They sleep close together as we do when we search for safety and exchange stories as we do in our evenings. The difference is that their walls are made of stone and your walls are made of concrete. But what is happening inside them is the same as people searching for meaning, for a connection, for continuity. As you move away in your imagination from the cave, you realize that this moment is not just a scene from the past, but a mirror that reflects something in you. Somewhere beneath all that time has built between you and them, you are one of them. The buildings you inhabit may differ and the tools you use may be more complex, but the heart of the story is one, beating ever since man began dreaming around a fire and looking to tomorrow with eyes that anticipate the unknown.